Hello, welcome to Parents, Families, and Friends. This program is brought to you by PFLAG, Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. I'm Paul Clifford, your host. PFLAG is a national organization with over 500 chapters. You probably have one in a neighborhood near you. PFLAG chapters often have monthly support group meetings where parents, families, and friends of their lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgendered loved ones can come together and chat about their loved ones, talk about issues that their family members face in school, in the workplace, in society in general, and gossip a bit and have a lot of fun. Most PFLAG chapters also have helplines, support groups, and you can contact your local chapter to find out where a meeting is. You can contact your chapter from the website. Go to www.pflag.org. That's www.pflag.org. On this program, we demystify lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered persons by talking with them about their lives. I'm joined today by Marvin Burrows, a friend of mine in the East Bay and the San Francisco Bay Area, an old-time activist and a current activist and one of my role models. Welcome to the program, Marvin.
Thank you.
Now, I invited you here because, in knowing you over the years, I've seen that you've had a rather colorful and interesting life. And I'd just like to talk with you about what it was like growing up gay, meeting your partner of 50-some years, eventually being married to him, and what changes you've seen in society over that period of time. So I want to sort of turn back the clock. Let's go back to when you were a child, 8, 9, 10 years old. Did you know you were gay then?
I think I knew about the age 8.
8.
I was different. I didn't know what to call myself, but after being chased home from school many times, being called queer, I kind of figured it out.
So other people probably were clued in even before you were?
Before I was, yeah. But usually it was older kids that chased me home.
They chased you home.
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with that?
I don't know. I learned how to run very fast.
Okay.
And eventually I joined the track team at school and won a few ribbons. But
so you're an athlete.
I turned a negative into a positive, and I was somewhat of an active athlete.
So you learned to run fast, and that made you suitable for the track team.
Yep.
You run cross country too?
Mainly short track and relays and stuff like that.
Were you involved in any other sports when you were a kid?
Skating. I started roller skating, and then eventually got pretty good at roller skating. And my partner and I were asked to go into figure skating, and that was,
wow!
And it was in the competitive sport. It was kind of.
So when did you start skating? When you
very young,
very
about
young.
9, 10 years old.
Did you skate all through your?
Well, there was a short time when I came down with polio and I wasn't able to skate, but roller skating became part of my therapy to recover from polio.
Oh, wow. So you met your partner, Bill, when you were how old?
I had just turned 17. I was working in a department store as a stock boy during the Christmas season, and I had to take a bus home because I lived in the country, a Greyhound bus, because the city buses didn't go that far, and I was waiting at a corner for the bus and near the bus station. And a friend happened to be driving by and asked me if I wanted to ride home. And I said, I'm not stupid. I said, of course, it's snowing, it's slushy, it's cold. And in the front seat with him was Bill, who ended up being my partner.
Did you know he was gay at the time?
Well, I figured he was with my friend who was gay, that he was gay also.
Okay.
But I didn't know his personal story or anything about him. I just knew he was tall, dark, and handsome.
Right. So you started dating pretty quickly, or?
Not really. I've always been accused of being a little hard to get, I guess, but we had a mutual friend that, and unbeknownst to each other, we were talking to this mutual friend about the other person, and he ended up being our matchmaker. And so he'd pick us up in his car, and we'd be in the back seat, necking.
Okay, I see. Well, we don't go into too much detail in this program, but
we didn't do anything but necking.
Okay, I did ask you to bring some photos, and we have a few here. This first one, why don't you tell me a little bit about this?
Okay, that is myself on the short one on the right, and Bill on the left. I thought he was about 22 at the time, but he turned out to be 15.
He was 15 in this photo?
He was 15.
He does look like he's in his early 20s. He's very, very tall, dark, and handsome, huh?
But by that time, it was too late. I was already hung up. But that was our first canoe. We bought a wooden canoe as the first thing we ever bought together.
So when was this taken?
1953.
1953. So you guys would go canoeing and just have fun.
That was our activity. Was canoeing.
Whose car?
That was his mother's car that she gave to Bill.
Oh,
later.
she gave to him.
1953 Chevrolet Bel Air.
When he's 15.
Green and white.
You remember that?
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's a remarkable photo. That's from quite a while ago. And you guys are such hunks.
I didn't know it.
You didn't know it at the time, but now you do. So he was actually, with looking at this, it's hard to believe that he's really 2 years younger than you in this photo.
Actually, there was sometime of the year I was 3 years older, and sometimes I was 2 years older. So he always emphasized the 3 years.
Oh, I see. He wanted, he wanted to feel he was young, but he looked much older there.
Yeah.
So his mom gave him the car. Was his mom very supportive of your relationship?
She was, without the spoken word, she was supportive of us both. We had neighbors who were older lesbians, and she would go to ask them advice about how to deal with us. And I guess the lesbians told her to leave us alone and let us be ourselves, and she did.
Wow. Well, here's another photo of the two of you, also shirtless, and another car figures in this. This is a real 50s kind of photo. The reason it was cut in a circle like that because his mother had put it in an antique clock as the centerpiece, and I'm pointing at his huge pot belly. Yeah, well, I wish I had a pot belly like that.
Me too.
So his mom put this in an antique clock. So she must have, in some way, been actually very supportive or admiring of
I
your
think she really
relationship.
was. In fact, the strange part of it is that for a while, when I first moved in with he and his mother after my dad kicked me out because of my relationship with Bill, is that she would allow me to drive her car, but she wouldn't allow him to drive her car.
Well, you were older.
Yeah. I think she had more confidence in me. He was a bit of a bad boy.
Oh, okay. And you kept him in line, I guess.
Tried.
She thought you would in any case. So your dad kicked you out. Where'd you go? What happened?
Well, my dad and my mother both knew I was gay, and they figured if I hung around, they knew I was having a relationship with Bill. They didn't know what, but my dad always picked and chose my friends, and he said I couldn't run around with Bill anymore because he'd be a bad influence on me. And by that time, it was too late for me. I was already in love, and
so you probably blamed
for the first
Bill.
time in my life, I disobeyed my father, and I continued seeing Bill. And then my dad found out, and he gave me a choice of either know Bill or get out. So I got out, and I stayed with my grandmother while Bill was asking permission for me to move in with them. She was divorced, so it was just her and Bill, and she was reluctant, but she eventually allowed me to move in.
Bill's mom.
The strange part of it was that she had previously given Bill permission to buy a pet monkey. And
a pet monkey?
So we've been looking around town for a pet monkey, and we pretty much decided on a grasshopper. But one day in the kitchen at Bill's mother's place, she says, well, you have a choice to make, Marvin or the monkey.
Okay.
So she looked at him, she looked at me, and she said, well, and Bill said, I'm thinking. But he eventually chose me, so it was a joke. And every year after that, on Valentine's Day, I would give him a stuffed monkey.
A stuffed monkey.
Yep.
Every year, so he had a lot of stuffed monkeys.
A lot of stuffed monkeys.
Oh my gosh! Because I know you guys were together longer than I've been alive. I think so.
51 years.
51 years. Okay, well, I'm 53 now, so I've got 2 years on that finally. But
well, if he was still alive, it would be 55 years.
It would be 55 years. Wow. So, I mean, was it always this amicable? I mean, when you were first together, did you ever fight or?
Constantly.
Constantly.
Constantly. The joke was that we were called the Bickersons. He would say black, I would say white. But
so you were together, but you're always butting heads somehow.
Yeah, and since he's passed away, people have asked me what I miss the most about Bill, and it was the fighting and the making up.
It sounds like you did that really well. So what did his mom think? I mean, from
she
her
never
point
said
of view,
anything.
well, she has these two kids in the house. They're in an obvious relationship. And they're always fighting with one another. Did you ever comment on that? Or?
The only time, one time during a long, large, loud fight, she said, "Shut up, Bill. Marvin loves you more than anybody else ever will." That did shut us both up.
That's
I don't think we didn't have another argument in front of her for a long time.
But that's neat because it's an explicit acknowledgement of your relationship.
And that was about the only spoken word she ever said about us.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, here's another photo. Tell me what's going on here. You're both in suits.
Well, that was at a party that we'd been invited to, and I don't remember the exact event, but I remember that we had to wear suits that night, and I didn't have a suit. So he's 16 at this time. He bought me a gray flannel suit at Penny's, and that was my very first suit.
So you're 16 and 18 here. Now, this is a pretty intimate pose.
And it was taken by one of the first Polaroid cameras by a friend who happened to be there showing off his new camera.
Wow.
So he took several pictures of us, and eventually Bill went down to the local drugstore where he bought the beer and had them enlarge it and got us a copy of it.
Now
and we framed.
He was 16, you were 18, but he was buying beer for you?
Yeah, because he looked older.
Because he looked so much older. So he was that generally true in your crowd? He would be the one to,
yes.
to buy the beer?
Especially all the underage ones.
Oh, I see. So was there trouble getting photos like this printed in those days?
We were nervous. But I don't know if they ever looked at the photograph, but eventually he went down, picked up, and nothing was said.
Because I've heard of...
And this was in the 50s, and we were both surprised.
I've heard from other friends of photos like this being confiscated at the drugstore.
I mean, we are dressed in suits, so there's nothing pornography about it, but
it's an intimate pose.
It is.
That's interesting. Now, here's another photo that you brought. Now, this whole crowd of guys and a couple girl couples here. What is going on here? Where is this?
People always ask me what it was like to grow up in the 50s, and I had a great time because this was a gay group, and this isn't everybody in our gay group that in my hometown, but we would leave the main part of town and go out to the country and have our little picnics and shoot off fireworks and race motorcycles and smoke cigarettes and drink beer.
Have a barbecue out there.
Yeah.
And how old were you here? I see.
I was probably.
You were there. You looked
I was
really
probably
young.
20.
20 years
19
old.
19 or 20.
So not only was there gay life in the 50s, but there were huge groups of friends who would party and
we also had a straight married couple who sort of were, I guess you'd maybe call them shills, because they would rent halls for us for our Halloween parties, and we'd always go to their home for parties, and they were just a wonderful straight couple who loved gay people.
Straight allies, just like today.
Just like today. And better than today because it's back in the 50s and 60s.
Right. Okay. Well, these photos are fascinating to me because they give these little snapshots of your life. Let's fast forward to here. This now, judging from the way you and Bill are dressed here, looks more like the 70s.
It's in the 70s. We were still living in. We had moved to the East Bay, but we had previously lived in that neighborhood in San Francisco. So it was taken when a friend came out to visit us from Michigan, and he took the photograph, and we were on the corner of Leavenworth and Bush, I believe.
And there it is. So you grew up back east or in the Midwest?
I grew up in Michigan, and we moved to San Francisco in 1966.
1966. So you'd known each other for 13 years.
We grew up together.
Yeah, we grew up together. Absolutely. Okay, now we'll really fast forward here. This is you and Bill a few years ago.
About the year 2000. This is when the Gay and Lesbian Community Center, the Lighthouse Community Center in Hayward opened up, and this was their first large fundraiser at Hayward City Hall.
Right. Now you were instrumental in the founding of the Lesbian and Gay Center.
Yeah, I was one of the many founders.
One of the many founders, and also in Lavender Seniors.
Yes.
That's a social group for seniors, and you do fun things, I guess?
Yeah, well, Thursday night, Valentine's Day, we had a Valentine's 1940s dance party.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
At the Lake Merritt Hotel, which will be called Barbary Lane.
Barbary Lane.
I never
That's
can.
cool.
I always say Barnaby,
Uh-huh.
but it's Barbary Lane.
And so you had like 40s big band music.
All the 40s music. Yeah. Woody Herman, Glenn Miller,
Oh,
Harry
that's fun.
James.
I wish I could have gone to
And
that.
it was fun.
But I don't dance very well.
And they also gave swing dance lessons.
Oh, okay. Well, that would have been pretty good. Well, you guys were together for 50 years, and then I guess it was 2004,
Yes.
in the spring, around Valentine's Day.
It was President's Weekend, during Valentine's Day.
During Valentine's Day, the mayor of San Francisco, Gavin Newsom, started issuing marriage licenses to gay and lesbian couples.
That started on the 12th of February, 2004.
And did you get married?
Well, I proposed to Bill, but he turned me down.
What?
He turned me down.
After
He
how
said-
many years?
We were getting ready for our 50th anniversary.
Okay, so you're dating for 50 years. You finally propose to him, and he turns you down.
I don't know. I think we were living together.
Oh, okay, living more than dating. Well,
More than dating.
Yeah.
He thought it would be illegal and a waste of time. But we had previously been invited to a marriage equality California rally in Sacramento. And how he was talked into it, I don't know, because I couldn't get him to go. But Molly McKay of Marriage Equality invited him, and she talked him into it. And while we're there, he got wrapped up in it. And he says, "Do you want to get married?" Well, I never asked why he changed his mind. I just said yes. And we announced it on the stage. And Mark Leno had introduced us as a couple who'd been together for 50 years. Mm-hmm. And we said we were going to get married, try to get married the next day. And Mark Leno says, "Can I marry you?" And I says, "Yes." So luckily we did. Bill would never have stood in line for all those hours in the rain to get married without Mark Leno performing the marriage for us.
Okay, so that's the photo we have here. Your actual marriage in City Hall in San Francisco, Valentine's Day.
That was the
4
day
years
after
ago.
Valentine's Day. That was
Day after.
Today's the anniversary. Well, it was February the 15th, and I think it was the day after Valentine's Day.
And Mark Leno is a state assemblyman for the state of
Yes.
California, and he presided over your marriage there.
Sure did. And what surprised both of us is that we got very emotional during the ceremony when we spoke the vows. And this is about, the photograph shows about the time we were repeating the vows. And it choked us up and brought tears.
After 50 years.
After 50, that's why I said it. That's why it surprised us, because Bill's point of pride was that we had stayed together all those years without a marriage license, and this was something that surprised him a lot.
Even though it, to him, was just like a strict formality, it still had a lot of emotional import.
Well, he always said he was glad to do something both political and personal in the same act.
Wow. Well, I guess living as a gay couple all those years together, your personal was political.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Over the years, when you rent an apartment, you had to lie and say you were related. You learn how to fake it through life because you don't want to say, "Well, this is my boyfriend."
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he's my cousin. He's my stepbrother.
Just
whatever.
too much chance for discrimination. So
Yep.
Okay, here's a picture of you descending the steps of City Hall.
Right after we got married, and they had wedding cake served that day in the side of City Hall.
What fun. And this, of all the photos you brought, I think this is my favorite.
I call it the rose petals and rice pictures. You can't see the rice. I could feel it, but the rose petals were nice.
The rose petals felt better than the rice, I guess.
And what I like about the photograph is that we're both smiling. And it's one of the few photographs of all the years we were together that we were both smiling at the same time and holding hands.
So there you are, smiling and holding hands, descending the steps of City Hall in a cloud of rose petals.
Yep.
That is really a beautiful photo.
People asked us, "Okay, where are you going to go for your honeymoon?" And we both said almost together, "Going to go home and take our shoes off. We're tired." We'd been in line for almost 7 hours.
7 hours waiting to be married.
Yeah. Most people later on were in line much longer than we were.
Right. I remember watching the news accounts. There were people in line all day and all night for
And in
days.
the rain.
In the rain, yeah.
As we were coming out, it just started to rain on the 15th.
It was an amazing event, though, because couples from all over the country flocked to San Francisco, stood in line for 2 days.
From other countries also.
And from other countries. And then, once they were there, standing in line in the rain, other people came and delivered flowers. People all over the country were sending them flowers.
Sending flowers. They
String
sold
quartets were playing, music for them.
And they sold out of wedding rings in San Francisco that week.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. So you were married. So after this, for how long?
Well, it was never validated by the state, but the Supreme Court later null and voided us 6 months later.
Oh, that's too bad. And then
We were still married up in our brain.
right. And then Bill died not too long
Bill
after. How
died
long?
the following March,
Was
March 7th, 2005.
Had he been ill for long, or was that
Nope,
sudden?
he had played golf that morning.
Oh my gosh.
So they thought it was either a heart attack or an aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
It was very sudden. He had gotten up. He was a graveyard shift worker. He had gotten up to go to the bathroom about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 4 o'clock, I passed the bedroom and I heard the bird squawking, which was in his room, and I opened the door to see what was going on, and I didn't see him in bed. He had gotten up and fallen and died there.
And that was it. That
That
must
was
have
it.
been a terrible blow for you.
It was a shock. He was the healthy one in the family.
Really? Because I know you had a heart attack.
I'd had several heart attacks, 2 massive ones, and quadruple bypass.
Oh my gosh. And he was a healthy one. And
We used to have tickets to several events like the ballet and the Best of Broadway series. He didn't renew those tickets when I was being operated on because he didn't think I'd survive. So I fooled him and did.
you never know what will happen, I guess.
Yep. Take every day
So-
as the last day you're going to see somebody.
Were you prepared financially for that? Or?
No,
No.
no. We had done all the legal things, we thought, but we were disposing of property to get ready to buy our retirement home, and we were paying off bills. We had never been so broke in all our lives, and it happened during that period.
Right then.
Yeah. He had signed me up for his life insurance policy and his pension. I did get his life insurance, but I was denied his pension, and naturally I didn't get his Social Security. If I had, I would have been fine.
Right.
But
right.
I had to move from my home of 35 years and lost my medical insurance because I had through his union.
So you didn't get your medical insurance any longer through his union. You didn't get the pension through his
Right.
union, and of course you didn't get Social Security.
Right. I expected not to get Social Security.
Right.
That's a federal.
Right. Now the union, that was the ILWU.
ILWU, International Longshore and Warehousemen.
So you asked for the pension. What?
I did ask for
happened
his
there?
pension. Now the pension trust denied me both. They denied me twice verbally and 4 times in writing, and they also, my local assembly person wrote a letter and they were denied. And I had the National Center for Lesbian Rights try to do some legal work with them, but they didn't have a legal stand, so they tried to ask for letters. Tried to ask for compassion, and
Right.
which still was denied to me. And I sort of gave up on it. I just figured it's a lost cause.
Yeah.
But 2.5 years later, the union called, said I got the pension.
Well, how'd that
And
come about? Who did that?
Really, I think it was a combination of my speaking out about it, the National Center for Lesbian Rights asking about it, and Bill's friends in the union itself. And I think
Right.
the people in the union are the ones who did the most.
So that's the International Longshoremen and Warehouse Union.
Right, and the pension trust was IEDA, and
Mm-hmm.
the union had changed its policy and gave benefits like medical insurance to domestic partners, but they hadn't updated it for survivors.
Right.
And they did that, and they also made it retroactive to March 2005. So I got
Wow.
all those back checks, plus I get all the checks down.
Well, so that's because Bill's friends in the union, he'd worked there 35 years, you said?
Right around there.
35 years. So his friends really went to bat for you
They sure did.
and changed the policy.
Yep.
Now,
And the motto of the union is an injury to one is an injury to all. And I thank them with all my heart, because Bill was proud of his union, and he would have been surprised that I was denied. And now I know he's smiling down. Say, I told you so.
that's pretty amazing. Was it unexpected to you, or did his friends in the union, were they openly supportive before then in any way?
Not where I knew, because I didn't get involved much with his job. If he had an event to go to, he took my niece He did, because he didn't think anybody knew he was gay.
After 35 years, but they all really knew.
They all knew. But when we did get married and our picture appeared on the front page of the Oakland Tribune, one of his coworkers went around to all 3 shifts at his plant, which was Owens, Illinois Glass Manufacturing, and had them sign a congratulations card, and it just blew him away.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
It is.
Well, that shows, I guess, how much things have changed in your lifetime around this issue.
A lot. If we had thought when we were kids about what's going on in life today, especially gay and lesbian life, even the conversation about gay marriage would be like science fiction to us. I mean, in our day, if any more than 5 homosexuals gathered, you could be arrested. You could be sent to a mental institution.
And now it is so different.
So different.
And you know what I think? I think that's largely because people like you and Bill live their lives openly. Their friends, their neighbors, their families got a chance to get to know you. And that's what changed everyone's mind.
I think so. I think that had a lot to do with it. People always said, how was it living in the closet? I said, I've never been in the closet.
Wow. Well, look, thank you so much, Marvin. Thanks for sharing your personal life. I realize you've always been a reluctant activist just by virtue of being there, alive and out. Thank you also for joining us. Please join us again.